Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Njist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Njist.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Again, it's Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast, coming at you again with another amazing and special guest. Someone from a very special place at a time in my life where I love, down in Newport Beach. But Bo, what I like to do is have you introduce yourself to my audience, like who you are, what it is you do, and then you and I are going to rock and roll.
Hey, Max, real pleasure being on your podcast. My name is Bo Belmont. I'm the founder and CEO of Belwood Investments. And just like you said, I'm in beautiful Newport Beach, originally hailing from Northern California, but I don't know if I'd ever want to live anywhere else now that I'm down here.
Right. I worked in a place that was, it's part of Newport, but it's right there where it was like 2 blocks away from where Kobe had his house. Yeah. I love that area, right? But it's all Newport, as we know. So what I like to do is dive into your story, Bo, talk about, go back, right? Everything, because we kind of had a little conversation before and we talked about how the real estate, you got to learn how to pivot, or there's people that don't know how to do that. But let's talk about those challenges and stuff early in your career and your life who have shaped who you are today.
Sure. So, I really got into real estate at a young age. My mom was a realtor, and she used to take me to job sites, where homes were being built, and just kind of instilled the love and passion of real estate for me. And then shortly out of college, I started selling loans. I was a mortgage broker at a place called AmeriQuest Mortgage. And this was like in the heyday of mortgages. It was the Wild West. I was, 21 years old, making $30,000 to $80,000 a month and didn't know what to do with that money other than to party with it, basically, and just kind of threw it all away. And but I learned a lot. I learned the basics of real estate and the cost associated with real estate. And I had some pitfalls, and I had, I really had to learn from my lessons there. And then 2007 came around, and that market ceased to exist. The market crashed, and I had to pivot and do something else. I was a subprime lender. There was no more subprime lending. That was like a bad word in real estate. So what I did was something that not many people were doing, which was flipping homes, which was buying these real estate owned REOs is what we called them, buying REOs at a low price, renovating them and selling them. And I did them, Max, all by myself, the first 3. I learned about it. I went on YouTube, I Googled it, I went to Barnes & Noble and I looked at books, and I was able to literally flip my first house by myself. And I turned a good profit. I had saved up a little bit of money before the crash, and I was able to buy that house, and I did it really well. And then, you know what? My friends started saying, "Hey, Bo, I want to do what you're doing." And I said, "Sure, quit your job, cash in your 401k, and roll the dice. Good luck. It's not as easy as you would think, and it's a full-time gig." And they said, "Bo, I couldn't do that. There's no way I could do that." So at that time, Max, I started bringing in partners, people that would love to flip homes, participate in it, but just don't have the time or resources or the capital to get it done. I was using some of my capital, some of their capital, and all of my resources, taking that home, renovating it, selling it, and splitting the profits 50-50. Then that started gaining a lot of attention. And so much so that I had hundreds of people coming to me wanting to do this operation. And we had talked about pivoting from a market, right? Pivoting from the recession in 2007, 2008. Well, that wasn't the only pivot that I had. In 2013, business was flourishing. I was doing very, very well. And I went on vacation with my family to celebrate my cousin's 30th birthday, who's a police officer. Well, we ended up renting an Airbnb in an interesting area in Napa County, which we didn't know the address until the day of. And we decided with our family there that we might as well check this place out. It wasn't where we had thought it was, but you know what? We had already gathered there. And when we showed up, it was a war zone. The neighbors didn't want us to be there. There was a frat party there the weekend before. It was crazy. So we showed up to a hornet's nest. Well, my cousin, being a police officer, didn't take no guff from somebody, regardless of their attitude. Well, that led into an argument, into an altercation between them, in which I had to end up defending my family. And so much so that I got charged with assault with a deadly weapon in 2013, ultimately convicted of assault with a deadly weapon in end of 2014, and ended up spending 3 years of my life in San Quentin, Tehachapi, and Valley State Prison. I was able to get out early and had to restart my life. And so the hundreds of investors that I had accumulated prior to that all knew that I was a good guy and knew that I really had the crappy end of the stick, if you will. And so they all came back, and I started flipping homes again. And I had to pivot from a really dark period of my life to, just starting all over again. And I did that, Max. And now my company is worth over $300 million. I have about 6,000 partner investors that we invest with. I've bought in some of the most luxurious homes in Southern California, even Kanye West's home in Malibu. We're buying P. Diddy's house right now, or at least trying to buy P. Diddy's house. And I had to start all over again. And we created an app for people to fractionally invest in real estate, in which we're the only company in the world that offers it. And so we've done a complete 180 from something that was a really horrific time. We pivoted, I pivoted, and now we're looking at potentially going public in the next couple of years. And it's all based on faith and hard work.
Right. I love that, Bo. I love that. Right. Because those three you mentioned are some of the toughest places on earth. You really learn about yourself. I almost went to prison. Part of my story is I got sober, right? And my choice was get sober or you're going to 3 years to prison because you haven't done anything I've said, right? And kind of relate to you, like in those times when tough things happen, sometimes we don't make the best decisions, right? But at the same time, right, if you're defending your family, you're defending your family. So I get it. But see, I'm so glad you're here, right? Because that's why I love coming to these interviews, right? And really getting to know my guests, right? Even if it's during the podcast, right? Because I love introducing guys like you to the world that have gone through some troubled times, right? But have turned it around and now live a great life, right? But as you and I know, life isn't always easy. I mean, just because you're doing well, life still has its ups and downs, right? But you have learned, I think, if I'm hearing right, from that period of your life, like nothing can get tougher than that, right? And I'm going to make sure that life, and it sounds like you help other people by having this app that people like myself, well, we'll talk after, right? That want to maybe get involved and expand their, like you understand, portfolio and do things so I can leave a legacy for my kids, my grandkids, my great-grands, all that stuff. But here, since you mentioned that, I'm going to ask, right? Like, I mean, you don't have to get into detail, but like some of those times in those tough prisons, right? What were some of the lessons that you learned, right? Because I know from having friends who have done half their lives in prison, changed their life, right? But stories they tell me, it's the California Department of Rehab. We know it's not rehabilitation, right? You have a grin. Everybody, he's grinning because he knows what I'm talking about. But that's what they call it now, the California Department of Rehabilitation and Prison, whatever. But
CDCR, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
That's right. But we know, like, those times can really shape you as a human being, the things that you learn as to survive, right? Talk about some of those times. I mean, you don't have to get into detail, but tell the audience like how you survived, right? Because it sounds like until then you had never even gotten in trouble. Now you're sitting in a prison and you're going, holy moly, like, what am I going to, I'll say, holy shit, what am I going to do now, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it was holy shit. So There's a lot of things that I learned. And yes, the stories that you hear, there's a lot of them. They're mostly true, right? It's a horrific place, especially St. Quentin and Tehachapi. It was just not a good spot.
Valley Center.
Yeah, Valley State was just not a good spot. But here's what I did. I went in there and I stayed the course, right? I didn't associate with any particular group. And typically when you go in there, you have to. It's like, hey, you're a white boy, you're going to hang out with the white boys. You're black, you're going to hang out with the blacks. You're Mexican, you're going to hang out north or south, right? And I was able to circumvent that, Max, because of my experience in real estate. So when I got to San Quentin, my cellie, he asked me, he said, well, what are you in here for? And I showed him my paperwork, because if you have bad paperwork, that's all bad, right? You're going to get thrown off the team. So I showed him my paperwork, number one. And he's like, dude, what are you doing here, man? What's going on? And I said, I'm a real estate guy. And I'd love to be able to help you out. Do you have any questions or anything like that? And sure enough, he did. His mom was going through a foreclosure. I was able to help his mom avoid foreclosure. I had another cell next door to me. He had some real estate issues with his grandmother, and I was able to help them. Then I had a guard come to me and said, hey, I heard that you're in real estate. I have a rental property, and I need some advice. So now I was the real estate guy, and it crossed all lines, color, gangs, county lines. It didn't matter. I was helping out staff. I was helping out inmates, and I was able to stay independent because I was able to offer basically a real estate service behind bars to people for free and help them and their families get out of sticky situations, or, even invest in real estate. So, for me, that was my way to navigate a really uncomfortable and dangerous situation is to, use my skill set. And I think that is something that I would, give advice to somebody that if facing, time in prison is you either have a tough decision to work hard and use your skill sets to stay independent and try to steer clear of these traumas and this violence, or you can accept it and be a part of the drama, be a part of the violence, and see where that gets you. Right. I look at it as when I was in there, Max, I remember I wrote a book in there, and I chose to basically stay up at night and sleep during the day. Okay. I was like on the graveyard shift. Why? Because during the day, there was just a lot of violence. There was a lot of nonsense. There's a lot of things going on that I didn't want to be a part of. And at night, I would study. I would, write documents to help people out and just give advice. And then I would pass those out. And then during the day, I would sleep, stay up at night. That was kind of my routine. But the way I felt about it when I was there, and hearing the screams and the loud, it's like a big dog kennel that you're in, 5 tiers of just violence and yelling and everybody from everywhere. It was absolutely horrible. But I felt like I was at the bottom of a well. At the bottom of a well, it's cold, it's wet, it's murky, it's scary, if you will. But if you look up, there's life up there. There's the sunlight. There is your potential. But it's so much easier to stay down at the bottom and stay where it's cool and murky and stay with the cool, murky people and just live your life down there. To scratch your way to the top of that well and get up to the top where the sun is and where real life is takes a lot of hard work. And that's what I decided to do. And I clawed my way to the top. I was able to get out almost 2 years early. I was sentenced to 5 years. I got out in 3. But they told me the only way, Bo, you're going to be able to get out is if you were able to get 2 degrees, college degrees. And I said, well, how am I supposed to do that? Like, they said, well, it's basically impossible. You'd have to go to 5 schools full time, through the mail. You're mailing in an assignment, each week. But you would have to go to 5 schools full time. Well, Max, that's what I did. I went to 5 colleges full time. I earned 2 degrees, and I was able to get out almost 2 years early because I did that. That was clawing my way up to the top. That was helping people out. That was avoiding drama. That was avoiding drugs and alcohol. That was avoiding all those things, which wasn't easy. There's so many times where I've loved to have drank alcohol and forgotten where I was. There were so many times where I've loved to have smoking some weed and forgotten where I was. But you know what? I would still be there. I would still be there because it's a trap. And I chose the hard way, which the hard way got me to where I am right now. And, not every path is going to be easy. And if you take the easy path, it's often not going to be fruitful.
Right. And thank you for sharing that, right? Because I believe, right, like this is not a podcast about entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship, as I've been told when I got into it, is like, Max, it's not for the faint of heart. And it's almost like prison, right? Like, or jail. You either going to fall in line and do what they tell you, or you're going to find a way to do your time and get out as quickly as possible, like you did, right? But see, here's where I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, well, all that hard work he did in real estate, right? And when he had to pivot because of the recession and start learning how to do flips, right? That gave you that grit to go, I'm going to get through this and I'm going to do it the way I need to do it so I don't get involved. Because you're right. And I'll be honest with you, Bo, when I got sentenced to a treatment center / sober living, right, by this judge who gave me a third chance, luckily for me, I got to go back and thank that guy, that judge at 3 years sober and go, you know what? Because I would find out later as I became a addiction counselor, right? I would find out from other attorneys and clients that I would go do progress reports with from their attorneys. They would say, you had who? That guy never gives second chances, right? Like, and he even told me, like, when I went and thanked him, he goes, I've probably sent 5,000 guys since your time. I don't remember you, right? Because I go, you probably don't remember. He's like, yeah, I don't remember you. But I go, if my kids here, they would thank you for giving their dad back. I stand here before you with 3 years sober, right? So I, like you, I kind of took those experiences of my addiction and turned it into, I'm going to make my recovery work. I'm going to do what I'm asked, right? So I can stay sober because I had promised God, you get me sober, I will do the work to stay sober, right? It's kind of similar when you got into prison, like, okay, I got myself here, but whoever's out there, if you keep me on the path, I'm going to get out and I'm going to turn my life around. And what an inspiring story you have, Bo, because you're right. I think if I would have went to prison, I would have been one of those guys that would have fell into like, okay, you got to run with these guys. I hate being here. So I'm going to try to numb out like I did when I was on the outside. And I'm going to do, and it would have turned in probably longer than 3 years, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
So, I mean, how grateful am I to have you here to share that part of your story, right? Because people don't understand what it takes to go through that kind of stuff and to do what you do in the market. Because I got sober in 2003, and I remember my grand sponsor and they worked in that subprime. And when that hit, they were all like, we got to pivot. We got to figure something out because that's like a bad word back, when that happened, like you can't say, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So fast forward, you get out of prison, right? And, prison is almost like the military. And what I mean by that, it is, they say, here, Bo, here's your $200 gate money or whatever you earned, right? Good luck. Don't come back. But as we know, right, that happens a lot. Recidivism rate is high. And it's like the military, right? They train you to do all this stuff. But when you leave, they're like, good luck, right? They don't like prepare you for the outside, this, as we would call it, the civilian world, right?
See you when you come back.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. They're hoping you'll re-enlist so that, right. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that about prison, right? But they're hoping, they're
hoping you come back too. I mean, look at how much money the state gets per person. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for one inmate. And then if you have some mental illness or you take psych meds or something, there's $250,000 per inmate to house them.
Right.
It is a money maker.
Well, that's why they're the highest paid union, the correctional.
PCPOA, yes, exactly.
Right. And it's funny, I realized that too, because when I was getting in trouble in the beginning, they used to walk us from Orange County Jail to the main jail court in Santa Ana, right? Because it was all underground, right? They figured out how to get more money from the government, right? They put us on a bus for then less than a 5-minute drive, but they were, the more they transported, the more money they would get. And
absolutely.
Right. So me and you can talk about, and I mean, we're smiling, everybody, because to us, it's like, once you get through something like that, we can turn, we can look back and smile and make jokes about it. But in all seriousness, right? Like, he overcame that's traumatic. Like he says, if you listen to what he said, going to prison is right there is a traumatic event that could cause PTSD. And that's not even getting involved in the politics, right? Just the everyday, like you said, hearing the stuff. So you get out, Bo, and I'm going to say it. So what the strengths that you learned while you were in there, how fast was it for you to get back into what you were doing and hit the ground running? Because it sounds like you did a pretty quick job of, like, because you had people that knew you and they knew you were a good guy. But but I'm sure there was some people that probably doubted you because you went to prison. Oh, you went to prison. I can't talk to him anymore. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. So what prison did for me was give me the strength to know that I can go through anything, right? Being on the outs was easy, was nothing compared to being in there. The stress of being in there, things to avoid, the potential of getting more time. I mean, at any point in time, somebody with a mental illness could come to you, hit you, or stab you, or do something. And just because you're merely involved in an altercation, even if you're the victim of it, and unless there was a clear witness of a staff member or a correctional officer, you're getting more time. So even though you're not instigating anything, you have the potential to gain more time very easily. Or somebody in your cell may have drugs and now you're just implicated because you're there, right? Or they have a cell phone. There's an extra 90 days. So the stress of having been in that environment paled in comparison to the stress of the outside. Because you know what? When you're on the outside, Max, you have resources. Versus one cell phone right here gives me unlimited resources to solve the majority of my problems, physical problems, right? God solves most of my problems or all of my problems by faith. But I'm going to tell you right now, the things that he gives me, the tools that he gives me, like my phone and like my resources with business, are navigatable. I'm able to navigate issues. I'm able to pivot. Like we were talking earlier about the market and how it's slowed down compared to, like, let's say, during COVID, when everybody wanted to buy a house because they needed to keep their family safe from COVID, and interest rates were 2%. And if you put a dog house on the market, it would sell for $100,000 over asking price. Well, those days are over. And so now I'm dealing with stress of having houses sit for longer, right? But I'm going to tell you now, that stress pales in comparison to sitting on the third tier at back bar 335 in San Quentin in the West Block. Okay, that's different stress. I couldn't leave there and try to solve my problems. I didn't have a cell phone to call resources and say, all right, let's talk about a refinance. Let's get this refinance. Let's get it into a rental. Let's make things happen, right? I have tools now. So the stress that I felt there was a helpless stress. The stress that I have out here is manageable stress.
Right. So it sounds like that prison time turned a negative into a positive, right? Because it makes you realize, like, when we're out here, like, and sometimes I'm guilty of it, right? Where I'm like, oh my God, everything's falling apart. I don't know what to do, right? But if I stop and think about, well, Max, remember when you were sitting in Orange County and you didn't think you were going to get out for 2 or 3 years, and right, and be here with Bo, and right, it's because, like, from what I've heard from my friends, right, who have done long-term prison terms, right, like Shot Caller was as close to reality, if you've seen that movie, right? Because it talks about that part where the guy goes, you're either going to run with us or you're going to have to do it by yourself, and you're going to fight off everybody that comes out. You know what I mean? And he falls into that part and goes, okay, I'm joining you guys. Right. And, and I have friends, that have went through what you have gone through and done all that part, but decided while they were in there, this is not the life I want to live. Right. And they had those moments of clarity, right, where they said, like, Bo, there's a light there. I just have to work my way to the top and get out of this murky, smelly, sad place. Right.
Exactly.
And that's why you guys that have gone through that are some of my biggest inspirations. I'm talking about the ones who said enough is enough. I know guys that have gotten sober in prison, right? Even thinking they weren't going to get out, and said, right, they walked by this little old lady who said, hey, we're having an AA meeting. I'll give you a cup of coffee and a cookie if you want to come join us, right? And they didn't, I'll just sit in here because I don't want to go back to my cell, and end up going, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my life. And then they get out and they're successful, and right, they help others, right? Not only in the program, but with work. And I know guys who, right, well, you heard there's a place that, like a bakery or a restaurant, which is all run by convicts, right? And I think it was run by a father or a priest who started it, but it's all run by a bunch of convicts who teach other convicts how to cook or bake. And then they, get them out to get them off the street and get them out of that lifestyle. Right. And I'm sure in your time of doing this, since you've been out of prison, I'm sure you've seen a lot of guys where you go, that was me. I want to go help. Like, how do you give back now that you're doing, it sounds like you did it in prison, and it sounds like you're doing it even more now outside of prison, giving back in some form or fashion to people. How does that look for you today?
Yeah. So absolutely. So, I made some quote unquote friendships when I was in there. And these people have paroled, and I've given them jobs, given them a chance at, starting their life over again. And a lot of them have done well, and some of them have actually gone back. So, what I like to do is just share my testimony. I like to go to AA with some of these guys and just give them the opportunity to start over again. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, his name is Jerry, he was paroled about a month ago. And I own a golf course and resort up in Northern California. And I got him a place to live up there. He's now a groundskeeper up there, and is really turning his life around. He was, addicted, and now, he's on the straight and narrow. And I like to offer these opportunities to people that have shown that they want to change. Because as you know, Mike, some people get out and they're just, they're on the track ready to go back. That they're, they paroled, but they paroled to go back. They know they're going to go back. It's kind of like the story of their life. Their family's been doing it. That's the cycle. And you know what? I like to share my testimony with them, but I think a lot of times it goes in one ear and out the other. I really, really like to help the folks that are trying to help themselves first, and have shown that they want to change. And when they do that, then that makes me want to pour into them and give them all of the resources that I have.
See, I love that, right? Especially the ones that are sick and tired of being sick and tired are the ones that are going to listen to you, are going to be the ones that say, hey, Bo, if you want me to go sweep your office, I'll go sweep your office, because I do not want to go back. But you're right. There is that part where I've seen guys and back when I was going, I would see guys that were in the jail getting ready to go back, right? As they say, catch the chain to go back to prison. And they literally tell me I'm going home. And it would blow my mind. Like, what do you mean? Like, home is the other way. Like, I want to go outside, right? But I get it, right? They've been institutionalized, and it's almost like the treatment, industry, where people that do the revolving door, right? They come in, they get well, they forget about how bad it was, they go out, and then they want to go back, so they know where to go, and you know what I mean? Or they even commit a crime to go to jail just to put a roof over their head. I've seen that, right? And you're smiling, you see, I mean, and you've heard the stories like over and over again, and it's like, I mean, it's heartbreaking at times, right? When you think someone's serious and you're helping them, and then the next thing you hear, they're back in, and you're going. But that even means for guys like us or like you, right? We keep trying, right? Because there always is a few that go, I'll take the help, however you give it, right? And that's what the beauty of it. They don't try to tell you, hey, Bo, I want your help, but you're going to do it this way. And Bo, right? You go, no, that's not going to work. It's like going to the program, right? The 12 steps are outlined, right? And this is not a push for program, everybody, but you can't go in and go, well, I'll do steps 1 and 5, but I'm not going to do 2, 3, and 4. And I definitely don't want to do 12 because I don't like people or whatever. You know what I mean? But
totally.
you're, like I said, how lucky am I to have you on the podcast today and share that part about your story and what has built you and the character you have today, right? Because to me, it's an honor to have you here, right? To hear that resilience and that drive to go, I'm not going to let this part of my life define me. That doesn't define me. It's going to be a part of my story, but I'm going to be a better man because of it, right? And you and I probably have that in our hearts and our heads. And I wish more people would take those experiences and turn it around to become better people instead of going, but yeah, we don't know their hearts and we don't know their minds, right? And all we can do, like you said, is pour into them and do our best. And if that doesn't work, that means God has another plan for them. And, we just have to accept it, as tough as it can be sometimes, right? To go, oh, you're going back. You don't want to do that, right? You don't have to do that. There's a way out. So kind of fast forward, right? Like talk about family and stuff, and how has those experiences affected your family, and how's it strengthened your family relationships and stuff today?
Yeah. So, everything happens for a reason, right? And a lot of people ask me, "Hey, Bo, what would you have done differently?" Right? And I tell them nothing. I wouldn't have changed a thing, because here I am right now talking to you, Max. My business is great. I was married at the time. I had a young son, and she didn't visit me one time while I was gone. And therefore, my son didn't get to see me at all while I was gone. And then when I got home, she wanted to pick up where life was. Like now I talked to her on the phone, talked letters and everything like that, but never physically saw her. And that really stuck with me. And so shortly after I got out, I ended up leaving that marriage and completely starting over. And then I met my wife, Megan, and we had 2 beautiful children, Boston and Grace. And Boston and Grace are just beautiful babies. They're turning 3 and turning 2 right now. And, yeah, 2 little babies. And my older son, Broderick, is turning, well, he's 16 now. And, and so my life, completely changed, and I was able to, just experience new things. So my family has gotten stronger. Now, Megan and I have had our differences. We ended up splitting it up, but we co-parent and are like best friends. We're just not romantic together or anything like that, but we're very good friends, and we raise our children together. But I'm fine with that. Life has shown me that it is only one life. You have one shot at it, and being happy and being good to other people is so important. And that's kind of what Megan and I felt when we were together. She was a realtor and showed me, I think, the second house I looked at when I got out to potentially buy and flip. And we hit it off. We were really good friends, and we kind of pushed it a little bit to get married and have children. And then we, after in the marriage, we decided, we're just better friends than we are, and romantic. And so now we raise our children together, beautiful children. And my family is back together as far as like my parents and my siblings. This all made us stronger. Where it could have broken us up and really, really torn us apart, it's actually bolstered our relationship. And like I said, I have 2 beautiful children and young ones, and my older son that I just, I wouldn't change anything, Max. I that same day, the day that, we got in that altercation at Lake Berryessa in Napa County, in this weird area where we kind of stepped into hornet's nest. People say, well, Bo, would you have turned around? Bo, would you? No, I would have taken the same route at the same speed at the same time. I would have done nothing differently. And sure, it was a tragic thing. And, a lot of people were sad and hurt about it. But you know what? it changed my life for the better, gave me the strength to endure some of the difficulties that I experience today in the real estate market or with family. And so, if anything, all of this has made me a stronger person.
I love it, right? Because in the end, right? Yeah, you made like with the kids, you know what I'm saying? Like, and sometimes you may be great parents together, right? And you're better friends than you are a couple, right? And for the kids' sake, I'd rather have them see that, right? Like than fighting, or you know what I mean? And,
exactly.
and you're right. People ask me about that, about my story. I mean, part of my regret is not seeing my kids during my addiction because it got so bad, right? The guilt and shame that associate. But would I change it? Absolutely not, because all that and then in my recovery has made me who I am today, right? I wouldn't be here with you if I didn't go through all that.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And we wouldn't be swapping stories, right? My kids, are they mad at me right now? Absolutely. Right. Because they don't get their way, even though they're adult children, right?
Sure.
But what I've learned in these struggles and finding myself is, right, there's my core values, things I will accept and things I won't. And then if you don't fall into that, then, if we're not friends, that's okay. Because, that goes for family too, right? But overall, it has made my family stronger. I've had a brother and sister that lived in Holland, right, that for years I didn't see. I'm talking 20, 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And they all kind of wondered what happened to me. But now I've got my older brother back in my life with his wife. My sister lives in Holland. She went through brain cancer, but survived. And right, I'm in contact with relatives in Australia, right? Which if I was still in my addiction, that wouldn't have happened. I would have been like, they're not here, so I don't care. They're not helping me. So
exactly.
Right. And it's kind of like what you did. You've turned those tragedies into triumphs, right? And it's made you someone that if anybody's listening, they're going, wow, listen to Bo. Like, I want to be like Bo, right? Remember the commercial when Bo was playing football? Be like Bo.
Yeah, Bo knows.
Right? Yeah. Bo knows, right? And I want to be like Bo, right? And to tell the truth, I mean, your story is inspiring, and you're that phoenix who have rose from the ashes and has changed his life and is doing great things. And so, one, I thank you for being here. I appreciate it and stuff. So I'm going to ask you some of the questions that I love to ask, right? There's only a couple, but fearless. We're going to start with fearless. Name of the podcast, name of my book. We'll start with the first part. What does fearless mean to you today, Bo? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
Fearless to me is having the faith without seeing it physically or having, evidence in your hand, right? It's having the faith to move forward confidently and fearlessly, right? It's confidence and faith. That's what it means to me.
I love it. I love when my guests bring that part of faith, right? Because if you would have seen me in my early recovery and my sponsor, my mentors at the meetings, especially over at that Newport club, Max, just have faith. God's going to take care of it. I'm like, God loved me so much. Why did he put me in jail? If God loved, and I'd say all these things, and they always had an answer for me. And I realized today that was God protecting me in a lot of ways, right?
100%. Yes, absolutely.
Right? Because like, I remember the time I told my sponsor, he's like, just have faith. God's going to take care of you. And I go, what? If God loved me so much, why did he put me in jail? And then he had me do this assignment. And I've shared this before, right? Was, okay, the times you didn't get caught, I want you to write out what would have happened if you didn't get caught, right? And I'm like, oh, and I would go, yeah, I probably would have got hurt, or somebody was going to something bad was going to happen.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, that was God protecting you. It might have not have been ideal to you, but he thought jail is perfect because he had.
It wasn't packaged. It wasn't packaged as you may have thought, but it was what you needed.
Exactly. And to go with what you're saying is like how I try to live life today is to, despite any fear, just do it anyway. Take action, have faith. That's, because when I think of it, I don't know about you, but I always think of the footprints prayer now. I love it. Or the poem, right? And I think now I'm going to do it, right? Because God's going to carry me anyway. So I'm going to do it anyway, right? So I try to practice that faith. So then the next question is happiness. As you can see, I put a Y in it. The reason I did. What does happiness mean to you today, Bo? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
Happiness to me is being able to wake up in the morning with my family, knowing that I went through the tough times to get to this point. Meaning, basically, I've gone through so much trauma. I've gone through so much pain to get to this happiness, to get to this joy that I get. Like just this morning, I had, my son's name is Boston and my daughter's name is Grace. And they were at my house last night and this morning. And I realized that they wouldn't be there unless I had gone through so much pain to receive this happiness. And that happiness is priceless. There's no amount of pain that I wouldn't go through to experience that happiness. So this happiness makes me happy. It's something that there's not an amount of money that I could pay to receive that type of happiness.
Right. Because I think it does mean so much more to us because of the things we've been through when we get to have these moments of pure joy. Like when you have your kid, you wake up and your kids are there, right? And they're just giving you that look like, we love you, Dad. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that beats that. And if you've seen him, everybody, he's got a big smile from ear to ear, right? Because he gets it. Man, this is, like I said, Bo, has been an amazing time. But I got to ask you, if my audience wants to get a hold of you, right? If they want to learn more about real estate, they want to learn more about you, or they want to work with you, or whatever the case is, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure. That's I'm glad you asked that. So my website is belwoodinvestments.com. That's BELWOOD investments.com. We also have an app on the App Store called the Belwood Investor app, and that's Belwood with one L. And then I also wrote a book, Max, called From Fractured to Fractions. And I own a fractional real estate investment company, and I was a fractured man. So if you have the opportunity to go on Amazon and check it out, it's called From Fractured to Fractions. It's not a long book, but it is powerful. And I would love for people to be able to reach out either on my website or read my book. And then if you guys want to email me, if there's somebody, hey, that just wants to chat and, maybe going through a dark time or just has some questions about real estate, they can always email me. And that's Bo, B-O, at thebigco.org, thebigco.org. And I would love to hear from them.
My apologies. Is that the book you wrote while you were in prison?
No, that wasn't the book that I wrote in prison. The book that I wrote in prison is actually in my office right now, and it was written with a typewriter. And it's really special to me, and I haven't published it. Okay. And I may, at one point in time, publish it unedited and looking exactly, because it's full of typos. And as you know, there's no backspace on a typewriter, right. So it's pretty hideous. And there's so many, there's no chat GPT or polish the writing at all. So, but it's really powerful and it's raw. And so that may come out pretty soon. But what is in the Fracture to Fractions book does talk about what happened in Napa and some of the experiences that I had to endure and then how I rebounded and then started one of the most unique real estate investment companies in the world.
I was just going to say, we got time. If you want to talk about that book, I would love to hear about it, but yeah, that's awesome. And I think you should release that book unedited, because it will show, people will actually feel what it was like to be you typing out a book on a typewriter, right? And
yeah. At first I wrote it out on yellow pads of paper. I would roll up my rack in the cell in San Quentin. If anybody knows the size of a San Quentin cell, it is half the size of my closet right now, stacked with two people in there. If you're on the toilet, you're literally at the head of the bed where somebody is sleeping. It's really disgusting. It's basically a dog kennel. And I would roll up my rack or roll up my bed, and I would sit on the concrete ground, and I would just write and write and write. And I would just escape where I was late at night. And I would write for hours and hours. And it was, typed out, it's 750 pages long. But on pads of paper, I think it was like 40 pads of paper.
Wow.
I was able to escape, and I was able to kind of share what I experienced and what my family experienced during that time in Napa. And then I was also sharing my experience in San Quentin and in Tehachapi and in Valley State, and what I was going through and what my plans were, because that book kind of set forth the motion to make things happen, right? I was, when they say write it down and you'll remember it more, it'll kind of set it in stone. Well, that's what I was doing, is I was literally kind of manifesting my future by writing it down. And that's what that book resembles. And in Fractured to Fractions, there's a solid portion of that. It's not as long as this book that I wrote in San Quentin, but it really takes the nuts and bolts of it and, shares how I was able to take something that was a horrific situation and turn it into something that is, like I said, now one of the most creative and innovative real estate investment platforms in the world.
I love it, right? Just the fact that you took a very sad, depressing situation and you found a healthy way to get through it by writing.
Yes.
You don't hear that very often. I mean, there's guys that have come out and written books. I mean, but you guys are very few and far between that I've seen, right? Where they actually focused on, I'm going to get through this so I can have a better life when I get out. I love it.
It was cathartic. It was absolutely cathartic. It was a way to escape. It was a way for me to really kind of focus and envision what I wanted to do with my life. And I was basically writing out a roadmap of my future.
I love it. I can't wait to read it.
Yes, absolutely. We'll send you a link.
All right. I love it. Like I said, this has been an amazing time, but you're not quite off the hook yet, Bo. I get to ask you my favorite question, and it goes like this. What is the one piece of advice you could give my audience, Bo, that will help them grow as human beings and become better people?
Ooh, it's never too late. Okay. So my biggest advice would be to be strong, never quit, even when you feel that there are no more options, because I'm going to tell you right now, when I was in San Quentin, I thought my life was over. I thought it was done. And I think a lot of people do feel that.
Yeah.
And you know what? God has another plan for you. And it may not be packaged the way you thought it was going to be packaged, just like you. You thought, well, God, why did you put me in jail? Why did you put me in this yellow jumpsuit? Why do I have this chain strapped around my waist and my ankles? Why can't I only take a 6-inch stride? This isn't nice. This isn't good. But you know what? It's for a reason. Have faith, never quit, and work hard. That is my advice.
I love it. You heard that, everybody. No, that was awesome. By the way, to end the podcast, but you heard him, everybody. It's been a great time, Bo, but you heard him. If Bo taught you something, if Bo made you think, if he made you smile, and my famous, if Bo made you go, I like that. Please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast. And again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.